Let's go.
This cold is gonna kill me. All right, let's pound this nail. What happens when a 60-something working-class artist is deported because he can't afford to live where he works? This is my adventure and the metanoia of escaping a greedy, gentrified metropolis into the loving arms of paradise. Welcome to Hollywood in Hollywild. I am the king of wishful thinking, and this is the 5th episode of our podcast series, Hollywood in Hollywild, titled Be Like Water. If you look at humanity like drops of water, it reveals the power of the people in a very natural way. Water is unpredictable, yet it always takes the path of least resistance. It can be slowed, but never stopped. Water is slippery, just like life. It covers 2/3 of the planet's surface, and we are about 2/3 water ourselves. If people were true to their nature like water is, nothing would be impossible or out of reach. Visualize a person as a drop of water. What can one drop do? I mean, we hear and see advertising that glorifies power, but under the camouflage, it's a divisive narrative. Only the most determined individual can affect major change on their own. History is full of Gandhis, Teslas, and Hitlers, but I don't care about those, and I'm not convinced that they're much more than distractions. The power of a single drop of water is that it could seep into the tiniest crack of a rock, freeze over, and eventually break granite like a peanut shell. Now, what I learned recently in nature, and what I'm most interested in right now, is what happens when 2 or more drops get together and become drips. A drip is a drop in motion. Water with purpose. Millions of collected drips is unfathomable power, and exactly the kind of energy humanity needs right now. Americans recently saw this kind of power in action. We've been talking about gun control for decades, but it took a bunch of fed up and determined kids, drops forming into drips, to use the Florida school shooting to mobilize other individuals into a roaring river of voices, protesting gun violence that is killing our children. As a sea of people with a passion and a purpose, they beat on the bully with mighty waves. The NRA is nothing in the face of this kind of power. No amount of wealth can stop it. Corporate mentality is concerned only with profit and hoarding resources by the process of divide and conquer. They're fighting us on 2 fronts. One keeps us divided and frightened, pointing out and magnifying any minuscule difference, no matter how inconsequential. And the other is psychology tricks. Sly and between the lines, or totally unbelievable and outlandish. But the truth is, our likes and dislikes, aspirations and desires are more similar than they are different. If we just took the time to get to know our neighbors better, we'd find out we have a lot more in common, and we'd hang out a lot more. For example, no one likes war. We all hate it, and its death toll. We love our children and want the very best for them, education so that they can live a better life than we did, respect on the street and workplace, clean water, green power, and cures instead of treatments. What I'm saying is, we're incredibly alike on the most basic things. Trillions of dollars are spent in advertising and in the news media to confuse us, make us doubt ourselves or feel stupid, and then believe the lie that we're all a different species, that we're alien to each other, even though the science proves that we're not. What if we collectively agreed to the end of war? Not the heads of government, but we, the people, the collected drips of water. Now, I'll tell you what would happen. War would stop. We'd put a few rich people out of business. Not spending money on war would allow us to spend money on stuff we actually need. War now takes 57 cents of every tax dollar, which just isn't sustainable. For a quarter of what we spend on war now, we could solve the housing crisis, build a brand new infrastructure, make health care and education opportunities available for all. And all it would take is stopping the world for a few days a week by coming together like a sea to conquer each issue over and over until we delete our programming and install a new system that sustains life on the planet for everyone. These individual protests and social movements like Me Too are proof that we don't have to put up with our world as it is. We, the poor, the 99% as a whole, do have the power to make change. We face a handful of people holding 90% of the world's monetary resources, and clearly they aren't interested in systematic change. But the kicker is that they need us. We don't need them. They can't clean up after themselves, and they can't make things with their hands. They are useless in a healthy society. We've all been watching the extravagance of the rich tear apart our social fabric. Rich people are insane. And I'm not talking about enough to coast on into retirement. I'm talking about the ultra mega wealthy. I'm sorry. Hang on. Look, this is what I mean. Imagine having 1,000 millions or 100 billions. It would be impossible for you to have friends or even a mate because you'd mistrust the entire world and the system. Money is a drug, and the mega rich are addicted to that drug. They don't have the one thing that everyone else does, something given freely, something that you can't buy. Relationships. You can't buy trust. And you know what? That makes the rich really angry about everything, especially the stuff that makes the masses happy. The ultra rich live very, very lonely lives with no upside and no trust. They make nothing with their hands, and they are powerless slaves to their greed. They try very hard to make money sound like a dream come true, but for them, it's a nightmare. That's why everything looks the way it is. It's being remade by monsters that have denied their humanity. You and I have more wealth than the Kochs, Waltons, and Rothschilds combined. We have real relationships, friends that we can trust. And the mega wealthy, they only have money, and they use it to be mean. We should see the rich for what they really are, a danger to themselves and to all of humanity. And we have to do something because their mood swings have killed millions. Personal wealth must be limited to a level that people can handle, but not so much that they can cause danger to the general public. You and me. The real power we have is marching at inconvenient times, like, the middle of the week, when it cuts into the wealth of the mega rich, when it ruins their week, their lives. A march a week, or maybe even 5, to make a point and drive it home like an ocean. We can and should stop the world until it's set right again. This is our responsibility to those not born yet, to create a world better than the one that we grew up in. We should be like water, like billions of drips of water joining into one ocean to make change, marching together, ignoring obstacles, and coming together as one superpower for balance. Friendship is like a perpetual motion machine running on ideas of inclusion. It's not easy, but it's like getting $1 from a 1-cent investment. Being a friend means compromising yourself, and that's a good thing because it's not all about you. It's about us. I've said this so many times. Experience and friendship are the only 2 things worth collecting on the entire planet. And they have the greatest return. And this simple concept, the rich could never afford or even understand. The most boring parts of life are usually the things that you want, and it's like that for everyone. Friends get you out of your comfort zone. Friends share. And it's time to learn the lesson of water from nature and to march with friends, to be the ocean, washing away the old to create a future for all of us, for everyone. Mega isn't the answer. And the only thing that is big, that works, is nature. Nature doesn't act like big business. It's balanced. 10 years ago, I lost my house. Actually, it's right where I left it. Still empty, along with millions of other people because of a classic mega-rich person idea. Subprime mortgages. This happened to millions of Americans. They were boiled away one drop of water at a time. I refused to evaporate, and I seeped into a rock and waited for cold weather, and I fought my way back. Here at the ranch, growing all my veggies in a greenhouse or protected garden this year is not going to be an option. Due to needing a new well pump, getting sick, being still sick, and, other obstacles of life. But, that's not going to stop me. I'm water. Powerful and fluid. And I have a plan B. At the suggestion of my bestie, I'm going to grow herbs like thyme, oregano, and rosemary in the garden area. Animals won't touch those. I'm also planting heirloom tomatoes in buckets and bags on the porch. Most of the herbs will ward off the insects that bite or sting, except bees. So that's a bonus. My amazing, powerful, drop of water bestie ginger sister helped me see a win-win with her suggestion, turning unexpected bad news into a solved problem. She makes apothecary tinctures and herbal extracts, distills her own essential oils, and she sells natural skincare potions. We've been friends forever. We've shared highs and lows, munchies and dreams for like 2 decades. Time is of no consequence to our friendship, and distance is irrelevant. One of her dreams was to sustainably grow lavender. Now, my dream has always been to have a small piece of land in some pristine, healthy nature. And I finally got one, so it was easy to make her dream happen. I got mine, she got hers. That is classic friend scenario. That's what happens when you have friends and you work together with them. It's not about selfish. It's about selfless. The fun stuff in life is always about dreams and collaboration and sharing, not dividing, feuding, and conquering. The future isn't difficult to see. I see an entire citizenry refusing to be scared or discouraged. What if we constantly encouraged each other as, a matter of course? Found a way to sincerely compliment and support each other? What if we believed in the positive we all have inside us? Going out to march every weekend till we changed the entire government and made our lives as they should be? Fair for everyone? No weak links in our chain? Now that would be a powerful country. I want to live there. Let me know if you like this. And don't forget to check out our blog and other goodies like videos, photos, and news about our new radio show, Hollywood and Hollywild Radio, on kryzradio.org. I'm Dave Thomas, and this show was only possible because of contributions made by the following brilliant artists. Mr. Joe Rudd for the open and close music, Mr. Eric Skirmahorn for his epic penultimate guitar playing, and Mr. Simon Cole for his brilliant perspective. And a very special thanks to you, our audience, for putting up with my cold and swinging by to say hi. I don't know. That was a good one. Yeah? Yeah. God, Eric, you're killing it on the guitar every single